I, Tentisnar Van Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the clans and bloodlines of Vampire the Masquerade in the World of Darkness. I'm continuing where we left off with specific bloodlines of various clans. Now, just like with last week, when I went over two bloodlines to the Bruja, I have two bloodlines to the Nosferatu. Let's start with the first one, the Guruhi. The Guruhi are yet another Legacy of Laibon, one of the African vampire bloodlines. They take their name from a Gambian deity. They believe themselves the rightful rulers of all of Africa and above everything else. They carefully get along with other legacies and will have sort of alliances with them within their territories. But generally speaking, they are below them. They have the disciplines of animalism, potence, and presence. Now, they will embrace from all aspects of African life, but they tend to try to embrace from those of important bloodlines, of those of royalty or rulership, even if it isn't nowadays, even if it's just in their blood. They turn to them. Now, on the surface, they appear completely unified, though there are stories of two branches of this group, that there is a second branch that waits, and should the first branch fall from effective grace, allow the rulership over all of Africa to fall away from them, this second one will rise up, call away the first one, and take their place, a stronger version of the Guruhi. The amount of this and the truth behind it seems to have fallen into ages, and especially now in the modern ages, there are very few that believe this or even follow any of these traditions. They share a weakness very similar to the Nosferatu, but much more complex. Their appearance alters with their moods. If they are in very positive moods or positive urun, they can appear as incredibly normal-looking people, even sometimes beautiful. But if they are in negative moods, or if their aye is dominant, they will appear as the true monsters they are. So, in a way, they are very similar to the Nosferatu, that their true appearance is that of a monster. But, in the right mood, they can appear just like you and I, and hide quite well among the public. Now let's move on, though, to the other bloodline. One that I've mentioned before when I talked about the Nosferatu, Nictuku, or the Nictuku. They're a bloodline of vampires that hail from the original progenitor, the Antediluvian, that formed both the Nosferatu and themselves, but a split occurred early on. To most other clans, they are rumors or delusions of the Nosferatu that are just child stories and don't actually exist. But they do. They have the disciplines of auspex, celerity, and potence. Now, according to the Nosferatu, the origination of them comes back from the Antediluvian that birthed them both, Asmilard. Asmilard gave birth, embraced a number of childae, and to the first group, he embraced them all and bound them to him with powerful blood bonds. But there was one who rebelled, who resisted the bond. This one that resisted the bond, which there are many rumors about who or what it could be, this one was the originator of the true Nosferatu bloodline as we know it. This is the one that formed the entire bloodline since. The progenitor was infuriated by this betrayal, this resistance to his will because they are of his blood. And so he set forth his other childae, his Nictuku, to hunt down and to punish those that have betrayed him, that have become traitors to him, through the promise of extinction. So his firstborn are the agents of this hunting. It is believed that the Antediluvian of the clan believes that the curse Cain placed upon him, the hideous curse that spreads through all of them, including Nictuku, that it would be lifted if the clan once again becomes unified and these betrayers are eliminated. Now, in the Dark Ages, Nictuku were all but forgotten to anything but some of the Nosferatu, and even those that knew of them only thought of them as rumors or a dead bloodline that will never come back. Even scholars amongst the Cainites just dismissed them. The truth is they existed out there, deep within the shadows, away from it, in small numbers, hunting and slaying Nosferatu where they please, on the fringes of everything, causing them to dive deeper underground in the places that they hid. What other Cainites, non-Nosferatu Cainites, didn't realize, and still usually don't realize, is that Nictuku are Diablerists, through and through, and they will Diablerize even non-Nosferatu. Now we reach the modern nights. The Nosferatu have become incredibly paranoid when it comes to Nictuku. They hide deep underground, armed with weapons and turrets and all kinds of defenses, armored places deep within the earth itself. They have their own version of an internet where they spread data and warnings of these creatures that might come to hunt them. Many ancient texts actually speak of the rising of the Nictuku from their slumber as the first sign of Gehenna, and we have seen some signs in it. Baba Yaga was slain by Nictuku. An ancient one, Visalia, rose up from her slumber and struck her down in Russia. Now everything about the Nictuku centers around the Nosferatu's progenitor. I'm not talking about the Antediluvian, I'm talking about the vampire which brought forth the Nosferatu from their antediluvian. Whatever supposed crime, whatever supposed betrayal, though forgotten to the annals of time and forgotten by the Nictuku, it is so egregious and so terrible that every last one of the Nosferatu must be slain, must be drug out and slaughtered, destroyed, driven to extinction for this very crime. Nictuku seek their havens in places where they will see the moon once they rise from their slumber. They seek out dangerous and places farther away from where others would have their havens, but close enough where they can still feed. Places like cliff sides or other abandoned places deep in nature they oftentimes will have, but they will never have their layers, their havens, underground. That is the layer of the betrayers, the traitors. That is where they deserve to be, until every last one of them is slaughtered. The Nictuku's prey is vampire, pure and simple. They get very little substance from from mortals. So they must hunt vampires, but they tend to be very stationary and seem to be very solitary. So this is a strange thing of how they get their blood to survive. There are always rumors of perhaps cults which give their blood to captured Cainites, which then in turn have their blood chained by the Nictuku, or a Nictuku elder who might have a fewer neonates under them which can do the hunting for them and bring back the blood to their master. What truth is well hidden still. They hunt and kill vampires, but when it comes to the Nosferatu, they are more dedicated and cruel than in any of the hunts they could possibly go in. And they, of course, are Diablerists, true and true. And they embrace the fact that they are Diablerists. They do not mind this fact. It is not a problem for them. By extension, because they are Diablerists, they tend to be a very low generation also. Now, when an Nictuku embraces, they like to look for youth and beauty. They usually look to places close to their haven, where they find the most beautiful of those amongst the adolescents. They focus on those that are at the cusp of adulthood, but they also seek out those whose beauty is perhaps too perfect. Teeth are too white, faces too clean, fingers are just a little too long. Things that almost makes these beauties a little inhuman, a little too perfect. Now, little is known of the actual process of the embrace of the Nictuku. It is known that they oftentimes will form bonds, blood bonds, even before the embrace occurs, or start them at least, because once the embrace occurs, once the newly formed Nictuku rises, they will seek blood, and they will not seek any blood. They will seek vampire blood. So having this bond with them form before they are embraced means that some control can be exercised on this young Nictuku. This is one of the reasons that it is believed that they formed small cults around them, with younger Nictuku under them, who can basically help create the network of gathering blood for their master, and that there may be human supporters behind this even also. Regardless, before and after the embrace, these chosen youths are trained to become powerful assassins to tear apart and destroy the havens of Nosferatu and slaughter them. The Nictuku weakness is twofold. The first part of their weakness is the fact that they get very little sustenance from the blood of a kind, the blood of a mortal. If they would completely drain a human, a mortal dry, they would get a third of the blood of any other vampire. But they get the full amount of blood from that of a canite. That is why they feed upon vampires, because their blood they get the full effect from. The other side is age and time are very bad to the Nictuku. For every 100 years that goes by, a Nictuku becomes more and more monstrous and more horrible. They slowly move away from that youth, that beauty, and become more and more of a monster, becoming bent, twisted, and grotesque. They specifically blame the Nosferatu for this blight upon them, this curse upon them. And should they eliminate every last one of them, perhaps this would stop occurring. But there is something else that occurs with this aging. Something that makes up for it a little bit. This grotesqueness. As they get older, their bodies become more and more physically perfect, until they reach the height of vampiric perfection across their entire body. They become physical perfection itself. Now, little is known of how or if they have any kind of organization. Their numbers are so low. Of course, there are always those rumors of the cults of humans which serve them, or the young neonate Nictuku who form basically a small group, a brood, around an elder. But these are all just suppositions which no one truly knows if it's true. The fact is, blessed few of them ever interact with canites, and most of the time it's to hunt and kill canites. That is the major interaction that occurs with them. There are only 10 known Nictuku currently. Only 10. Now, in early versions of the clan that was presented, they were presented as much more of a myth, with most of the rumors stating that they were all, of course, 4th generation. They were all the children of the original progenitor. As we come into the 20th anniversaries of both Dark Ages and normal Vampire the Masquerade, we do see more information being revealed of them. We see that they just are not 4th generation. There are other generations of them, and more information is revealed. But their origins still remain shrouded in myth, with multiple accounts of how they could have originated and how this sort of split between the Nictuku and the Nosferatu occurred. So it is hard to say if the true account is the one that is usually stated by Nosferatu and generally seemingly obeyed by the Nictuku. Whether that is the actual account or there is some other version of it is impossible to say now. It is only known that these are vampires that hunt other vampires, and in particular, hunt Nosferatu. So that's it for today. I introduce you to the 2 bloodlines of the Nosferatu. The Guruhi, a group of vampires from Africa, whose true appearance is horrific. They put an air of good looks, because the fact is, they believe themselves the true rulers, the rightful rulers of all of Africa, and they'll do whatever they can to gain. Now that I talked about the Nictuku. The Nictuku, a legend amongst Nosferatu, barely believed, if at all, by other vampires. Hunters, progenitors from the same bloodline, a split that occurred at the 4th generation, right after the Antediluvian. That the Antediluvian saw the Nosferatu bloodlines as betrayers, traitors, those that, because of their crimes, must be driven into extinction. Agents of these extinction. These are vampires, built to hunt other vampires. They can only get the best sustenance from blood from vampires. Mortals give them very little sustenance. Vampires give them the full taste of their sustenance. But as they grow older, they grow both stronger and more grotesque. And the grotesqueness they blame upon the Nosferatu. They have this anger and hatred for them that drives their hunting as the core aspect of their beliefs. Powerful Diabolarists that will do anything to destroy this one clan. And along the way, hunt any vampire they can sink there. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows you over the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon. Link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.